The silver blade pressed against Heaven's throat, cold enough to burn. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The tribunal circle tightened around her like a noose. 20 pairs of eyes watching her kneel in the dirt, waiting for her to die. "Confess what you are, Omega," Elder Morgrave snarled, his weathered face twisted with disgust. "You touched the Alpha King's son, a creature like you, laying hands on royal blood." Heaven's voice came out barely above a whisper. "He was dying. The cub was dying. I couldn't just—" "Silence!" The blade bit deeper. A thin line of blood traced down her neck. "You think we don't know what you did? The boy's wounds healed in minutes. Minutes! No Omega has that kind of power." Her hands shook against the frozen ground. Snow melted beneath her palms, not from warmth, but from something else. Something that had been clawing to get out since the moment she'd found the little wolf cub bleeding in the ravine. His small body broken, his golden eyes dimming with each shallow breath. She'd only wanted to save him. That was all. Just save one innocent life. "She's a witch!" Someone spat from the crowd. "Burn her!" "She's cursed! Look at her eyes! They're glowing!" Heaven squeezed them shut. No, not now, not here. She'd hidden it for so long, kept the power buried so deep that sometimes she forgot it existed at all. 23 years of silence. 23 years of being invisible, sleeping in the barn with the livestock, eating scraps, keeping her head down and her mouth shut. And now, because she'd saved a child, they wanted her dead. The elder's grip tightened in her matted blonde hair, yanking her head back to expose more of her throat. "Any last words before I release her?" The voice cut through the winter air like lightning through stone, deep, primal, carrying the kind of authority that made grown wolves drop to their knees. Heaven's eyes flew open. He stood at the edge of the tribunal circle, massive and terrifying, his black fur-lined cloak billowing in the wind. Alpha King Alexander. 6.5 feet of raw power and barely contained violence, his steel gray eyes fixed on the elder with an intensity that could melt iron. The blade trembled against Heaven's skin. Elder Morgrave's confidence cracked like thin ice. "Your Majesty, we were just... The Omega used forbidden magic on your son. We caught her." "I said release her." It wasn't a request. The elder's hand fell away from Heaven's hair. The blade clattered to the ground. She collapsed forward, gasping, her palm sinking into the snow as the world spun. Alexander moved through the crowd like a force of nature. People scattered, backed away, lowered their eyes and bared their throats in submission. He didn't acknowledge any of them. His focus remained locked on Heaven, broken, bleeding, barely conscious in the dirt. He crouched in front of her, and suddenly his enormous frame filled her entire field of vision. This close, she could see the scars that marked his hands, the frost clinging to his dark hair, the way his jaw clenched with something that looked almost like rage. But his touch, when it came, was impossibly gentle. He tilted her chin up with 2 fingers, examining the cut on her throat with eyes that had gone molten silver. Heaven couldn't look away, couldn't breathe. She'd seen the Alpha King before, of course. Everyone had. He was impossible to miss. But she'd never been this close, never felt the heat radiating from his skin, or smelled the pine and winter storm scent that clung to him. Never seen the way he looked at her like she mattered. You saved my son. It wasn't a question, but Heaven nodded anyway. Her voice came out hoarse and broken. He was hurt. I couldn't let him die. Something shifted in Alexander's expression. His thumb brushed along her jawline, so gentle it made her chest ache. What's your name? Heaven. Heaven. He said it like he was tasting the word, like it meant something. Then louder to the crowd, "This woman is under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me, personally." The tribunal scattered like leaves in a storm. Morgrave tried to protest, "But the law states that unauthorized healing magic—" Alexander's head turned slowly toward the elder. He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "Are you questioning me?" "No, Your Majesty. Of course not. My apologies." "Get out of my sight." They fled, all of them. Within seconds, the circle that had been baying for Heaven's blood disappeared into the snow-covered forest, leaving only the Alpha King and the Omega Girl kneeling in the frozen dirt. Heaven tried to stand. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. The world tilted dangerously, dark spots blooming across her vision. She'd used too much, poured everything she had into saving the cub, and now there was nothing left. Not even enough strength to keep herself upright. She felt herself falling, and then she felt nothing at all. Consciousness returned in fragments. Warmth, softness, the crackle of a fire. Heaven's eyes fluttered open to find herself staring at a ceiling made of polished wood beams, intricate carvings of wolves and moons dancing across the surface. This wasn't the barn. Panic shot through her veins. She tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her skull, forcing her back down onto what she now realized were silk pillows. Silk. She'd never touched silk before in her life. "Easy. You've been unconscious for 2 days." Heaven's head whipped toward the voice. Alexander sat in a chair beside the bed, an enormous leather thing that looked more like a throne. His elbows resting on his knees, watching her with those impossibly intense eyes. She scrambled backward instinctively, pulling the blankets up to her chest like they could protect her. What am I shouldn't be here. I need to go back to the barn. If anyone finds out—" "Breathe." His command cut through her spiraling thoughts. Heaven's lungs obeyed before her mind caught up, pulling in a shaky breath. Alexander leaned back slightly, giving her space. "You're in the east wing of the palace, my personal quarters. You collapsed after healing my son, and I brought you here to recover." "The palace. I'm in the palace." "You are." "I can't. Omegas aren't allowed. They'll kill me for this. They'll say I'm trying to—" "No one will touch you." The certainty in his voice made her fall silent. Heaven stared at him, this massive, terrifying man who could snap her in half without effort, who ruled thousands with absolute authority, who was looking at her like she was something precious instead of something disposable. It didn't make sense. "Why?" Alexander's jaw tightened. He stood, moving to the window with his hands clasped behind his back, his silhouette dark against the morning light. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then, "My son was attacked by rogues 3 days ago. I found him in the ravine with his throat torn open, barely breathing. I carried him back to the palace, called every healer in the kingdom. His shoulders tensed. They all said the same thing. The wounds were too severe. He wouldn't survive the night." Heaven's chest constricted. She remembered the cub, so small, his golden fur matted with blood, whimpering in pain. She'd been foraging for scraps near the ravine when she heard him crying. Hadn't thought, just acted. I sent the healers away, prepared to watch my son die. And then a guard came running, said an Omega had appeared at the palace gates carrying the prince, demanding to see me. He turned back to face her. You'd already healed him, completely. Wounds that should have killed him were just gone. I didn't mean to cause trouble, You gave me back my son. Heaven, do you understand what that means? She shook her head mutely. Alexander crossed the room in 3 strides, crouching beside the bed again, so they were eye level. This close, she could see gold flecks in his gray eyes, could feel the barely leashed power thrumming beneath his skin. It means you're under my protection. Permanently. No one will hurt you. No one will force you back to that barn. You're done sleeping with livestock and eating scraps. Heaven's throat tightened. Tears burned behind her eyes. She couldn't remember the last time someone had been kind to her. Actually kind, not just tolerating her existence. I don't understand. I'm nobody. Just an Omega. I don't even know where I came from. The wolves found me in the forest when I was a baby and kept me alive because I was useful. That's all I am. Useful. Something dark and furious flashed across Alexander's face. His hand lifted. Heaven flinched instinctively, old reflexes kicking in. But he only tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear with devastating gentleness. You are not just anything. What you did, the power you have, that's not Omega healing. That's something else entirely. Heaven's stomach dropped. Please don't tell anyone. Please. If they know what I can do, they'll... They'll what? Try to use you? Hurt you? Treat you like a tool instead of a person? His eyes burned into hers. I'm not like them, Heaven. And I need you to trust that. She wanted to. Gods, she wanted to believe him. But trust was a luxury she'd never been able to afford. What do you want from me? Alexander's expression softened. I want you to stay here. Recover. Let me figure out what you are and where you came from. And in the meantime, he stood, moving toward the door. My son has been asking about you nonstop. The boy's convinced you're an angel. Despite everything, Heaven felt her lips twitch. Is he all right? Alexander paused in the doorway, glancing back with something that might have been a smile. Perfect. Because of you. The door closed softly behind him, leaving Heaven alone in a room that was bigger than the entire barn she'd called home for 23 years. She pulled the silk blankets closer, her mind spinning. She should run, disappear into the forest before this got complicated, before anyone discovered the full extent of what she could do, before the Alpha King realized she wasn't worth the trouble. But exhaustion pulled at her bones, and the bed was so soft, and for the first time in her life, she felt safe. Heaven closed her eyes and let sleep take her. She woke to the sound of small footsteps and excited whispering. Is that her? Is that the angel lady? Shh! Papa said we're not supposed to wake her up. Heaven's eyes opened to find 2 small faces peering at her from the edge of the bed. The cub she'd saved, maybe 5 years old in human form, with Alexander's gray eyes and golden brown hair, and a little girl who couldn't be more than 3, clutching a stuffed wolf. Hello. The boy's face lit up like sunrise. You're awake! I'm Matthias, and this is my sister Lily. You saved my life, and Papa says you're the bravest person he's ever met, and you're staying with us now, and Maddie talks too much. Do. Not! Heaven couldn't help it. She laughed. Actually laughed, the sound rusty from disuse. It's nice to meet you both. I'm Heaven. Heaven? Like where angels live. That's 'cause she is an angel, dummy. I'm not a dummy. The door opened. Alexander stood in the entrance, his massive frame somehow both intimidating and protective, watching his children climb onto Heaven's bed with an expression she couldn't quite read. What did I say about bothering our guest? Matthias looked appropriately guilty. Sorry, Papa. We just wanted to thank her. And bring her flowers! Lily thrust a handful of slightly crushed daisies toward Heaven. I picked them myself. Heaven accepted the flowers with trembling hands, something breaking open in her chest. They're beautiful. Thank you. Alexander's eyes met hers over his children's heads. The look he gave her was complex, warm, assessing, protective, and something else she didn't dare name. All right, you two, let Heaven rest. Come on. But Papa... Now, before I make you practice your combat forms. They scrambled off the bed, giggling. Matthias paused at the door, looking back at Heaven with earnest eyes. Thank you for saving me. I love you. Then they were gone, leaving Heaven clutching wilted daisies and trying not to cry. Alexander lingered. They've taken to you. No one's ever said they love you. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Alexander moved closer, his presence filling the space like a storm barely contained. Get used to it. My children don't give their affection lightly. A pause. Neither do I. Heaven's breath caught. She looked up at him, this powerful, dangerous man who was being so impossibly careful with her, and felt something shift inside her chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. There's a bath drawn for you through that door, fresh clothes laid out. Take your time. When you're ready, join us for dinner. I want you to meet someone. Who? Alexander's expression turned serious. The kingdom's oldest lore keeper. I had her examine you while you slept. Just observations, nothing invasive. Heaven. He crouched down again, bringing them eye level. She thinks she knows what you are. And if she's right, everything is about to change. The lore keeper was ancient. Not just old, ancient. Her silver hair fell past her waist in intricate braids, and her clouded eyes saw things that hadn't happened yet. She sat across from Heaven in Alexander's study, surrounded by books and scrolls and artifacts that hummed with old magic. Luna Prime. Heaven blinked. I'm sorry? That's what you are, child. The first Luna bloodline, the original wolf queens who could heal with a touch, command the moon itself, and bond with any pack. The lore keeper's gnarled fingers traced patterns in the air. We thought your line died out 3 centuries ago. The last Luna Prime was murdered during the Great Purge, and her daughter disappeared. But legends spoke of survivors. Hidden. Waiting. Heaven's hands shook in her lap. No, that's not... I can't be. I'm just an Omega. I was found in the forest, raised by wolves. I'm nothing special. The power to heal mortal wounds in minutes? The way animals respond to you? The fact that you survived infancy in the wild when you should have died within hours. The lore keeper leaned forward. You're not an Omega, Heaven. You never were. Someone hid you, protected you, made sure you'd survive even if they couldn't. Alexander stood by the window, his posture rigid, listening. Heaven looked at him desperately. This doesn't make sense. If I was royalty, why would I be left in the forest? Why would no one claim me? The lore keeper's expression turned grim. Because Luna Primes were hunted. Their power threatened certain factions. Those who wanted to control the packs through force rather than the natural order. Your mother likely died protecting you. Made sure you'd be hidden where no one would think to look. Among the lowest of the low. Exactly. The room fell silent except for the crackle of the fire. Heaven's mind reeled. 23 years of scraping by, of being treated like dirt, of believing she was worthless. And all along, she'd been running from a legacy she didn't even know existed. What happens now? He turned from the window, his gray eyes burning with something fierce. Now, we keep you safe. If word gets out what you are, every power-hungry alpha in the territory will try to claim you or kill you. His jaw clenched. Neither of those things will happen. There is another option, Your Majesty. Alexander's eyes cut to the lore keeper. What option? The old woman smiled knowingly. Luna Primes can only reach their full power when bonded to their true mate. An alpha king, traditionally. Someone whose strength matches and balances theirs. Her clouded gaze moved between Heaven and Alexander. Someone whose wolf has already recognized them, whether they've admitted it or not. Heaven's breath stopped. She looked at Alexander, saw the truth written across his face, in the way his hands fisted at his sides, in the muscle jumping in his jaw. I've known for 3 years. The world tilted. What? Alexander moved toward her slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. 3 years ago, you were in the courtyard, tending the sick wolves during the fever outbreak. I was passing through, and I caught your scent. Pine and honey and something else. Something that made my wolf go absolutely feral. He stopped in front of her chair, towering over her but somehow making himself smaller. I've watched you since then. Couldn't help it. Saw how you cared for everyone, how you never complained, how you made people feel safe just by being near them. Heaven's chest heaved. Then why did you let them treat me like that? Let me sleep in a barn? Because I didn't know if you'd want this, want me. I'm not an easy man, Heaven. I'm demanding and possessive and violent when it comes to protecting what's mine. I didn't want to force anything on you. His voice dropped lower. And then you saved my son. Nearly died doing it. And I realized I couldn't stay silent anymore. Couldn't watch you suffer from a distance. You should have told me. I've spent years thinking I was invisible, thinking no one saw me. I saw you. Every damn day I saw you. They stood inches apart, Heaven's heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. She could feel the heat radiating from him, could see the barely controlled power thrumming beneath his skin. 3 years. He'd been watching her for 3 years. Why me? You're an alpha king. You could have anyone. Alexander's hand came up slowly, cupping her face with devastating gentleness. Because my wolf chose you. Because you're brave and kind and stronger than anyone I've ever met. Because when I'm near you, everything feels right. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Because you're mine, Heaven. You've been mine since the moment I caught your scent, and I've been yours just as long." Heaven's eyes burned with tears. No one had ever wanted her, ever chosen her, ever looked at her like she was something precious. "I don't know how to be a Luna. I don't know how to be anything but invisible." "Then I'll teach you. We'll figure it out together." His forehead touched hers. "But I need to know, is this what you want? Because once I claim you, once the bond is complete, there's no going back. You'll be mine, and I'll be yours, and I'll burn down anyone who tries to take you from me." Heaven's hands fisted in his shirt, her wolf rising to the surface for the first time without fear, without restraint. It recognized him, had been calling to him even when she didn't understand why. Yes. The word barely left her lips before Alexander's mouth was on hers, claiming, possessive, desperate. Heaven gasped against him, and he swallowed the sound, one arm banding around her waist to lift her against him like she weighed nothing. She'd never been kissed before, had never even been touched with kindness until him. But her body knew what to do, rising to meet him with equal hunger. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexander's eyes had gone molten silver. The mate bond snapped into place between them like a living thing, golden and brilliant and absolutely unbreakable. Mine. Heaven's wolf surged forward in agreement, and she felt her own eyes flash bright white, the mark of a Luna Prime. Yours. The lore keeper cleared her throat pointedly. I'll just see myself out, shall I? Neither of them noticed her leave. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of revelation and wonder. Alexander moved Heaven into the royal quarters officially, gave her a wing of her own with more space than she knew what to do with. The pack's reaction to their Alpha King, claiming a supposed Omega, was mixed at best. But one look at Alexander's face when anyone questioned her, and the dissent died quickly. Heaven learned what it meant to be Luna Prime, learned to call her power without fear, to let it flow through her healing touch consciously instead of desperately, learned pack politics and diplomacy and how to hold her head high when entering a room. But mostly, she learned what it felt like to be loved. Matthias and Lily attached themselves to her like burrs, calling her mama within days and looking at her with uncomplicated adoration. Alexander touched her constantly, small things, gentle things, a hand at the small of her back, fingers threading through her hair, pulling her against his chest when she woke from nightmares about the barn, about being worthless, about losing all of this. I've got you. You're safe. You're mine, and I've got you. But shadows still lurked. Elder Moorgrave hadn't forgotten his humiliation, hadn't forgiven being overruled. Heaven caught him watching her sometimes, with eyes full of calculating malice, and she knew he was planning something. She was right. The challenge came at the full moon gathering, when all the regional alphas assembled to pay tribute to their king. Heaven stood beside Alexander on the dais, wearing the silver circlet that marked her as Luna, trying not to feel like an imposter. Moorgrave stepped forward from the crowd. I invoke the ancient right of challenge. The hall went silent. Alexander's hand tightened on Heaven's, his expression going cold and lethal. On what grounds, Elder? On the grounds that your so-called Luna is a fraud, an Omega pretending to be royalty. I demand she prove her lineage through the trial of the moon goddess, and when she fails, she'll be executed for deception as the law requires. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Heaven's blood turned too. Ice. The trial of the moon goddess was legendary, a test so dangerous that most who attempted it died. Only true Luna Primes could survive it, and even then, barely. Alexander moved to speak, but Heaven stopped him with a hand on his arm. She stepped forward, head high, channeling every ounce of strength she'd built over 23 years of survival. I accept. Heaven, no! I have to. If I don't, they'll always question my right to be here, always doubt you for choosing me. Her eyes met his. I can do this. Alexander looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to tear Morgrave apart with his bare hands, but he was a king before anything else, bound by laws even he couldn't break. If anything happens to you, it won't. I'm stronger than they think, than I thought. She squeezed his hand. I'm coming back to you. The trial took place in the sacred grove at midnight. Heaven stood alone in the center of the ancient stone circle, surrounded by hundreds of watching wolves, while 3 priestesses prepared the ritual. The test was simple in theory, impossible in practice. Call down the moon's light and prove the goddess recognized her claim. Luna Primes could do it instinctively. Anyone else would be consumed by the moon's power and burned from the inside out. Heaven closed her eyes and reached for the power she'd spent her whole life hiding. It rose willingly now, eager, singing through her veins like liquid starlight. She thought of Matthias's small arms around her neck, Lily's gap-toothed smile, Alexander's gentle hands and fierce devotion. She thought of finally belonging somewhere. The power exploded outward. Silver light erupted from Heaven's body, so bright that wolves had to shield their eyes. It shot upward like a beacon, piercing the clouds, touching the moon itself. The entire grove illuminated as if daylight had broken at midnight, and when the light faded, Heaven stood wreathed in silver fire, her eyes glowing pure white, her hair lifting in an unfelt wind. The mark of the moon goddess blazed across her collarbone, a crescent moon intertwined with a wolf, visible to every witness. She was Luna Prime, undeniable, unquestionable. Heaven's eyes found Morgrave in the crowd. Do you require further proof, Elder? Or would you like to challenge the goddess herself? Morgrave's face went ashen. He dropped to his knees. Forgive me, Luna. I spoke in ignorance. You spoke in malice. You tried to have me killed before, and you tried again tonight. She looked at Alexander, whose expression was dark with barely contained rage. He's yours to judge, my king. Alexander descended from the dais slowly, each step deliberate. When he reached Morgrave, his voice carried across the entire grove. You challenged my Luna, tried to have her executed, put her life in danger twice. He crouched down to Morgrave's level. The punishment for threatening the Luna is death. But I'll give you a choice. Exile or execution. You have 10 seconds to decide. Exile! Please, Your Majesty, exile! You have until sunrise to be gone from my territory. If I ever see you again, I'll tear your throat out myself. Guards dragged Morgrave away. The crowd erupted in howls of approval, accepting their Luna, celebrating her victory. But Heaven only had eyes for Alexander as he crossed to her, pulling her into his arms with fierce desperation. Don't ever do that to me again. My heart stopped watching you stand there. Heaven laughed against his chest, giddy with relief and residual power. I told you I could do it. You're incredible. Terrifying and incredible and completely mine. completely yours. He kissed her there in front of everyone, claiming her publicly, irrevocably. And when they finally broke apart, Alexander's voice rang out across the grove. "This is heaven, my true mate, your Luna Prime, and the future mother of my heirs. Anyone who questions her answers to me, anyone who threatens her, signs their own death warrant. She is mine to protect, mine to cherish, and mine to claim for eternity." The pack's howls of acceptance shook the trees. 3 months later, Heaven stood in the same grove, wearing a gown of silver and white, surrounded by flowers and moonlight. Matthias held the ceremonial rings, trying to look serious despite grinning so hard his face might split. Lily scattered petals with intense concentration, her tongue poking out between her teeth. Alexander stood at the altar in formal blacks, looking at Heaven like she'd hung the stars themselves. The priestess smiled. "Do you, Alexander Thorne, King of the Northern Territory, take this woman as your bonded mate, your Luna, your queen, for all your days?" "I do, now and forever." "And do you, Heaven, Luna Prime of the ancient bloodline, take this man as your bonded mate, your alpha, your king, for all your days?" Heaven looked at the man who'd seen her when she was invisible, who'd chosen her when she had nothing, who'd protected her and cherished her, and taught her that she deserved to be loved. "I do, now and forever." The bond between them blazed golden bright as they sealed their vows with a kiss, and Heaven finally understood what it meant to come home. She'd been found unconscious and broken, had saved a life with her last strength, and in return had been given everything she never knew she needed: a family, a purpose, a love that would last lifetimes. Heaven smiled against Alexander's lips and let herself believe, finally, that she deserved every bit of it. Did you like the story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, tell us which state you're watching from so I can give you a shout out in the next video. Shout out from our friends in Texas, England, New York, Canada, and more. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our next uploads. Thanks for watching!